Look at the price tag on your next purchase. Anything with a chip, a battery, or a motor. You probably glanced at it and moved on. But that number, whatever it says, is about to be decided by a fight happening right now between two of the biggest infrastructure projects in human history. And almost nobody outside a few foreign ministries and trading desks knows the battle is even underway. This is the story of IMEC versus the Belt and Road Initiative, one built by China over the last decade, stretching its financial reach across 150 countries. The other built in response, backed by the United States, India, Europe, and the Gulf, announced in September 2023 at the G20 summit in New Delhi. Two corridors, two visions of how the world moves goods, money, and power. And the one that wins will shape what you pay for almost everything you buy for the next 50 years. Let's start with the one already in place. China's Belt and Road Initiative, launched in 2013, is one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects ever attempted. It has poured hundreds of billions of dollars into roads, railways, ports, and pipelines across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and Europe. The stated goal was development and connectivity. The actual result, as the Council on Foreign Relations and multiple independent economists have documented, is something more complicated. Here is how the Belt and Road works in practice. China offers a developing country a loan, often at higher than market interest rates, with the terms kept confidential. A Chinese state-owned firm builds the infrastructure. Local workers are sometimes sidelined, and if the country cannot repay, China steps in. In 2017, Sri Lanka handed over the port of Hambantota on a 99-year lease after it could not service its debt. By 2025, Sri Lanka owed China an estimated $19.5 billion. The port it lost sits directly on one of the world's busiest shipping lanes just south of India. That is not development. That is leverage. Countries across the world are waking up to this. Bangladesh turned down a major BRY highway project in 2024, citing default risk. Italy, the only G7 nation that had ever joined the Belt and Road, formally withdrew in 2024. Kenya's standard gauge railway, built with Chinese financing, is losing money and cannot cover its debt payments. Zambia, Angola, and Nigeria have all renegotiated or slowed their Chinese infrastructure commitments. The Brookings Institution has described this pattern as a structural trap. Projects that serve Beijing's strategic interests more than the borrowing country's economic ones. The Belt and Road's outstanding overseas debt has now crossed $1 trillion. 75 developing nations face significant repayment burdens in 2025 alone. And Beijing, rather than writing off the debt, is offering new loans to cover old ones at higher rates. The trap does not open, it just deepens. Now enter IMEC. The India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor is not just a trade route. It is a direct answer to the question, what does the world look like if China does not control the infrastructure? The corridor connects India's western coast, starting at the new deepwater port at Vadhavan, approved with a $9 billion investment in June 2024, by sea to the United Arab Emirates. From there, a new rail network threads through Saudi Arabia and Jordan, arriving at the Israeli port of Haifa. From Haifa, goods move by ship to Greece, Italy, and the rest of Europe. Initial feasibility studies cited by the Atlantic Council suggest that IMEC could cut freight transit time between India and Europe by nearly 40% and reduce shipping costs by around 30% compared to existing routes. That matters to you because those costs are embedded in everything you buy. When shipping gets cheaper and faster, goods get cheaper and faster. When shipping gets disrupted, which is exactly what happened when Houthi attacks closed the Red Sea to normal traffic in 2024, everything gets more expensive. IMEC is designed in part to provide a route that avoids that exact choke point. But IMEC is more than a shipping lane. It has three pillars. The first is trade infrastructure, the ports, rail lines, and logistics hubs. The second is energy, electricity cables, and green hydrogen pipelines running the same route, designed to carry Gulf energy into European markets. The third is digital, high-speed fiber optic cables and cross-border data infrastructure running the full length of the corridor. The German Marshall Fund has described this as potentially transforming the trade, energy, and digital landscape from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean in a single coordinated build. The G7's Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment has pledged to mobilize $600 billion globally for projects of this type. That is the financial muscle backing IMEC and its sister initiatives. It is not Chinese state money deployed through confidential loan agreements. It is a combination of private capital, multilateral financing, and government backing, with terms that, at least in principle, do not require you to hand over your ports when things go wrong. Here is the counterintuitive part of this story. IMEC is not winning yet. It is not even close to finished. Construction of key infrastructure segments only officially began in April 2025. No governance structure has been finalized. No binding cost estimate has been locked in. Early segment projections range from $3 billion to $8 billion per leg. And the corridor has a serious vulnerability sitting at its center. The Israel-Hamas war nearly killed the project before it started. Arab partners grew reluctant to cooperate on any corridor routing through Israeli territory. Progress stalled almost immediately after the 2023 launch. The 60-day follow-up meeting promised by the Biden administration never materialized. What changed? Two things. First, a tentative ceasefire in late 2024 reopened diplomatic space. Second, Donald Trump returned to the White House. In February 2025, Trump and Indian Prime Minister Modi stood together and declared IMEC a strategic priority for both the United States and India. Trump called it, in his words, one of the greatest trade routes in all of history. A summit of IMEC partners was announced for fall 2025. Modi then flew to the UAE, Italy, and France to push the project forward. White House South Asia official Ricky Gill traveled to India specifically to advance the corridor's momentum. Construction began the following month. This is where the geopolitics get personal for you. If IMEC succeeds, it means India's industrial capacity, one of the fastest scaling manufacturing bases in the world, connects directly to European markets and American consumers through a route that does not pass through choke points China influences. It means your phone, your car, your semiconductor supply chain has an alternative path that does not run through Chinese-controlled infrastructure. The Brookings Institution and the Atlantic Council have both argued that supply chain resilience, the ability to source components through multiple routes, is now the defining economic security challenge of the decade. IMEC is, at its core, a bet on that resilience. If IMEC fails, if the financing does not materialize, if the Middle East conflict reignites, if the governance structure collapses under competing national interests, then China's Belt and Road remains the only game in town for billions of dollars in annual trade. Beijing's infrastructure advantage solidifies. Its leverage over developing economies deepens, and the price of the goods on your shelf is increasingly set by a network built on terms you never voted for and cannot easily change. The trade war of the century is not being fought with tariffs alone. It is being fought with concrete and rail and fiber optic cable. It is being fought in ports in the UAE and corridors in Saudi Arabia and summits in New Delhi. And the price tag on your next purchase will tell you, eventually, who won.